We got Gators breakdown here. We know we're business.
Gators breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Coming at you more spring football coverage right here on this episode of Gators Breakdown. We'll hear from Billy Napier. We'll hear from Tre Wilson. We'll hear from Jordan Castell. They spoke late last week, so just coming around to that. And, just continuing spring practice coverage right here. Hey, it might look a little different to you. I'm using a new streaming platform. So, excuse the bumps. Excuse some differences that may or may not happen. It's just moving on to a different one. We're gonna see what it's like. So I don't know. I don't know what it's gonna be like. So certainly we'll get by at least this first time. I think I'm good. You know, I did a couple practices there, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I got to fix some lighting right quick too, because I overlooked some things right quick. But hopefully it sounds good. Hopefully it will look very familiar to you. Didn't change a whole lot, but had to change a little bit moving streaming platforms. So excuse some bumps along the way. Hopefully don't have to worry about anything like that. So. All right, like I said, plenty to get into right here on this episode of Gators Breakdown, and thanks for hopping on live. As I know, it's a little short notice that I was going live here. As I said, through when I started spring practice coverage this year, it's going to be like that. You know, when I get a chance to, I don't know when it will be. You know, certainly over the weekend was enjoying watching some Florida basketball. So if you follow me on Twitter, I'll talk about that. The podcast, football only, basketball talk will be on Gators Breakdown Plus, Discord, all that stuff like that. But, you know, certainly, the returns, and as long as I've done this, you know, still off-season football. And look, I got to spend time with family, all that stuff. I wish I could, get spend as much time on other sports as I do football, but sometimes it's also good just to be a fan and let me just sit back and watch basketball, sit back and watch baseball, all the other sports as well, but certainly enjoying what this Gator basketball team is doing. So I'll certainly talk about the podcast here on regular Gators Breakdown. Will be all football. So everybody, thanks for hopping in right here, and of course, spring practice coverage, all spring long, brought to you by Florida Victorious. And with all the news that's going on, it's a great time to join. And you can be the difference by joining Florida Victorious. Your support can directly impact the outcome on the field. You want to help the Gators win? Well, just like when you pack the swamp, your unwavering support through Florida Victorious empowers the Gators to be their best. If you enjoy player access, you'll find it at Florida Victorious. Members receive invitations to exclusive events like the meet and greet after the orange and blue game. You get access to exclusive merchandise and memorabilia, great sports coverage from Nick De La Torre, and more. There's never been a better time to join. So join today, make a difference in bringing victory to the orange and blue. Visit floridavictorious.com to join now. Oh, let's see. And of course, if you would check it out, gatorsbreakdownmerch.com. Some new Gators Breakdown merch if you want to support what we're doing right here on Gators Breakdown. That's a good way of doing it right there. Gatorsbreakdownmerch.com. Some new merch there. That strut and gator, I really like that. I really like that design there. So something new going out there for Gators Breakdown supporters. So certainly you can go there. Gatorsbreakdownmerch.com. Link is in the description. So all right, let's get to it right here. Let's hear from Billy Napier and Tre Wilson. A lot of talk about Tre Wilson, of course, coming back and, he's in that black jersey this spring, so, no contact, playing it safe here. But Billy Napier discusses Tre Wilson, the type of player he is, and we'll hear from Tre Wilson as well, talking about making his comeback and more.
Once every practice, I see that 3 in that black jersey. And routes on air, we get a chance to see him do some things. And, we all know 3 is one of the elite skill players in the entire country, and obviously, when he's healthy, he's as good as there is. So I think we've been through a very detailed plan in terms of a thorough process to have this surgery with the best hip doctor in the country. Very thorough plan that's laid out for his return to play. And, he's on schedule, and he looks like $1 million. When he does go out there, he's as impressive of a skill player as we have. So it's going to be huge for the Gators to get him back. This guy's he's a one-play touchdown player. And, when he's out there, then it makes us a lot harder to defend. You got to kind of pick your poison a little bit. So it'd be a big deal to get him healthy and get him back.
It's a blessing. It actually just hit me a couple of days ago. Just a little moment, come to realization that I'm back doing what I love, since I picked up football.
So. What was it like going through the injury situation, realizing that you had this hip issue and having to go through that whole process of getting it repaired?
I mean, it was obviously like a struggle, but I feel like, it was also a blessing in disguise at the same time, just throwing adversity at me. And, God gonna give his toughest battles to his toughest soldiers, so it most definitely allowed me to grow in spots I never even knew I had.
Did you ever have a sense that there was something wrong with your hip?
Yeah, but I just kind of got used to just dealing with that nagging pain, but it's all taken care of now.
Is it a weird feeling to be considered one of the veterans in the in the receiver room?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's a weird feeling. At the end of the day, it's a blessing. I made it 3 years in college football, going on my third year. And, there's a lot of situations where some people aren't able to make it that far. So I don't really look at it as like a weird feeling. Just look at it as more like a driving fuel.
You look like you get bigger every time I see you.
Yeah.
So how hard have you been working to kind of just keep adding good muscle?
Them first couple months, I couldn't really do anything, below the hips. So I really was just getting under that rack and just, had to just put on some weight up top.
How much, can you kind of tell us how much more explosive you got in your 2 years here, just in terms of some of your gains?
I mean, I came in at 170 my freshman year. Just weighed in at 191 this morning. So, I mean, even in the warm-ups and everything, I'm feeling lighter. I'm feeling like a lot more bouncy. And so, strength staff doing their thing.
Do you have some collared shirts that don't fit anymore?
I'm not too big on collared shirts, but but there's a reason for that.
Looks like you got a new neck size.
A lot of them talking about my neck. But
this wide receiver group, it's so deep, so talented. What's the ceiling? How good guys can you guys be?
I mean, sky's the limit. I don't think there's any ceiling for any of the rooms, to be honest. But, not only are we going to take care of business on the field, but we're going to have fun with it too, have a smile on our face and, make it a terror for the defense.
And then last year, your yards per target kind of, shot up a little bit. Do you think we can see more downfield this year, kind of building on last year's success then?
Yes, sir, everywhere.
Billy talked a little bit about just now, you're not really a slot receiver, an outside receiver, you're an all-around receiver. Where are you more comfortable playing? Do you want to play in the slot primarily or work outside?
I mean, my whole life, I never really put a position to my name. At the end of the day, I'm an athlete, and that comes all the way over, to this point in my playing days. And, that goes from being on the offense side of the ball, even on the defense side of the ball, special teams, just go out there and make plays. I don't really, wherever they put me at, just get the ball in my hands and let me go do what I do.
Go do what he do. That's what I want to see from Tre Wilson. Ernest Cobb checking in. He says, best wide receiver room in the country. We'll get into a little bit of talk there, too, with J Michael Sturdivant in just a second as well. And, of course, when Billy Gonzalez talks later on, we'll dive even more. But really going to focus on Tre Wilson, J Michael Sturdivant this episode. But, hey, those two guys are going to go a long way in making this the best wide receiver room in the country, if you believe so. And hey, if Florida is going to compete for a title in the SEC, college football playoff, maybe hopefully national championship as well. Hey, Cody the Professor from High Top Sports checking in as well. He goes, can we see history repeating itself? Need basketball to win the Natty. Start off right. Hey, that's how it happened in 2006, right? So let's make it to the Final Four. Let's win a national championship in basketball, and maybe that translates and history repeats itself right here. And then we see the following football season, Florida hoisting that national championship trophy as well. But certainly, Tre Wilson, it's funny when you go and look at it, and part of that conversation being, he may not have ever been healthy since he's been at Florida. That hip injury has been a nagging injury. It's been with him for quite some time now. So you pair that with playing with DJ Lagway, and then Trey Wilson himself getting. I mean, you see the videos. I mean, it is obvious he has put some weight on. He is stockier. He looks thicker, and of course, a lot of that is to lend itself in staying healthy, being healthy. He's dealt with injuries, since he's been at Florida a bit, and only 4 games last year, which we'll get into. But certainly, I think a lot working in Trey Wilson's favor of finally getting the surgery, so that hip injury won't be nagging. You can see the weight that he's added, playing with DJ Lagway. I mean, all these things coming together, I think can really help. Coming in as a freshman in 2023. Lit it up. I mean, 61 catches, over 500 yards, and now, of course, heading into a sophomore year last year, the expectations were through the roof, as they should have been. But how these things go. Sometimes that nagging hip injury really threw a wrench in what Florida's offense was trying to do with Tre Wilson. Still managed to put up some impressive numbers. 19 catches, 266 yards in just 4 games. And what's really interesting there is, how his game evolved. We did see a little bit of change there, and there were some reasons for that. We're looking at a jump from 8.9, so about 9 yards, to 14 yards per catch. So, a bigger, certainly a larger jump, 5 yards more per catch. And that's significant, and something that might surprise you. 214 of those yards were after the catch. So Trey Wilson showing off his wheels a bit, and certainly a guy that we just know can be a weapon with a ball in his hands. Now, there's been this ongoing conversation about Trey Wilson, of course, just being a gadget player and not necessarily a full wide receiver just yet. And a lot of those quick screens and short routes, playing close to the line of scrimmage. But you dive into those numbers, and his average target depth doubled from 2.8 to 6 yards with Lagway at quarterback for some of that, of course. So that's where the Lagway part of it comes in. And, I think it's telling us something right there. It makes you wonder what we might see from Lagway and Trey Wilson together, especially with Trey healthy and Lagway settling into his role. Something special could be brewing there. With Graham Mertz, we all know the downfield was limited, and that's, Trey Wilson having to stick closer to the line of scrimmage. But in the games that Trey Wilson and DJ Lagway played together, we saw it. We saw the potential that those two had together, and that was with Trey Wilson not really being 100%. So Napier did go on to say that, they could use Trey in just about every receiver position. And I think we kind of knew that too. And I think that was, something that we were going to see. Last season, he was at 53.5% out wide while being in the slot 44.6% of the time. So, yeah, they're moving him around a pretty good bit. Napier said Trey is smart enough to handle it, that he's a good concept learner, can run the full route tree inside and outside. And then get this. There was a comparison. Napier threw out there. Trey Wilson reminds Billy Napier of Steve Smith, and that he's got that play strength. This is what Billy Napier described it as, quote, play strength. And if you get him the ball, he's quick enough. If you get him off ball, he's quick enough to win at the line of scrimmage. In general, he's not a slot or an outside guy. He's a receiver, is what Billy Napier said. We can line him up wherever we want. So, yeah, just this spring, I think, is important. I mean, we've seen plenty of video out there of Trey Wilson running routes. And I mentioned he looked bigger, and I had plenty of people pointing out at the same time, he looks faster as well. He's been in that 23-mile-per-hour club before there for Florida. But certainly, what jumped out to me first was, just the size that he's put on. But then many other noticing, hey, he looks quicker as well. He looks twitchier. And if that's the Trey Wilson we're getting, then maybe everything that we were thinking of a year ago, where he's taking part in spring and coming back with an experienced quarterback like Graham Mertz, well, maybe that jumps with a quarterback like DJ Lagway and testing the ball down the field. We saw it there with Trey Wilson in just 4 games. And, really that Samford game, of course, where second game of the season and take the opponent into consideration, but certainly able to make some big plays happen. What was it, the first big pass play of the Kentucky game? It's 50 yards down the field to Trey Wilson from DJ Lagway. And that was about it. We didn't see much after that. We didn't see anything after that. We saw that, thankfully for Florida, Elijah Badger, Chimere Dike was able to step up and carry that wide receiver room, and we'll get into that in just a second too with the talk of J. Michael Sturdivant. But Trey Wilson would have certainly been a great addition to DJ Lagway's arsenal. And I thought we saw the expansiveness of Trey Wilson with DJ Lagway at quarterback and just not having to hover around the line of scrimmage. Talking about it, and of course, the conversation is going to be coming up a lot. I mean, there's not really much new, but 5 Adam asking the question, update DJ Lagway injury. Not really an update. It's pretty much the same as it was when spring practice started. Still limited, still not throwing. It was certainly going to be more concerning as we go through spring practice and we don't see him throwing. I told you I'd have to go through spring practice before the concern really crept up. And that kind of seems to be the word right now, that DJ Lagway may not throw this spring. It gets more concerning in that regard, but not really an update. Still people I talk to behind the scenes that I do trust, not too concerned about big picture DJ Lagway here. More erring on the side of caution. You do have to throw in that whole second opinion thing that Billy Napier said in the first spring press conference. It was serious. And that Billy Napier, you can look at that both ways. First, you had to get a second opinion. So, yeah, it is somewhat maybe concerning in that regard. But he did say they do that for a number of players and situations. So, I think when it's all said and done, DJ Lagway will be lining up against Long Island, and we'll come back and look at this and be like, okay, there's nothing to be worried about. But I get it. And it will hang out there until we see him throw. Rightfully so. It can hang out there, the concern. From everything I hear, that's all I can share. I trust what people are telling me. I think DJ Lagway will be fine. All right, let's get to it. Even more. We're going to hear from Billy Napier some more. Kind of talked about the receivers, Trey Wilson. Some of the young guys, too. We'll get into that later this spring with the young guys, but let's go to J. Michael Sturdivant. Billy Napier was asked about him, and the success from the transfer portal that they've had at that position as well.
Just over the years, you've watched a lot of players, I think evaluate a ton of players in every cycle. We've learned from great people. I think we've got a way that we do it. I think our personnel department does a phenomenal job of kind of filtering through, weeding it down to a group that we can get our eyes on. And then I just think it takes reps, I think we've been able to do that consistently for a while. So J. Mike is, I think has been a very productive player. I think much like Chim, he had an initial surge in production. Then the production went away. Then there's traits there that kind of check a lot of boxes. Then you meet the kid, you meet the family. There's a lot of very impressive people, very mature, very smart kid. And you just see things, hey, look, we think we could do a lot with that guy and get that production back to where it was when he was a young player. So J. Mike, he's doing well. He's handled the work, the work capacity is there. I think he's motivated. Obviously, he's got 1 year here to kind of prove himself and increase his value, and I think he knows he can help our team.
There we go on J. Michael Sturdivant. Brandon Pollard, thank you so much, because I forgot to do my little normal spiel at the beginning of the episode. Brandon says, let's get the likes up, go Gators. I was so worried about using this new streaming platform and making sure the start was going to go okay. I forgot to tell everybody to hit that like button. Hey, that really does help us out right here. So it gets more people to watch, gets more people interested right there. So Brandon, hey, thank you, Gators Breakdown listener, for putting it out there. So I didn't forget. So Willie Peterson saying go Gators. Sean Mack with some Gator emojis. Rob S. going back and saying Lagway injury is fake news. There we go. Peter says 4 wide, Sturdivant, Trey, Mizell, Dallas, or we riot. Hey man, Hey, throw Vernell Brown to third in there too now. There's some options you can go there, Peter. There's some options you can go there. But yeah, J. Michael Sturdivant going to be a part of that. Hey, let's just go back and learn some more about J. Michael Sturdivant. Why is he going through spring practice? We about a week or so, just a little over a week for the Gators in spring ball. But let's just go back, to who he was coming out of the portal and signing with the Gators. Originally from Dallas. Spent his career in the state of California. Sturdivant, of course, now in his 5th college year, began with the Cal Golden Bears, where he redshirted after playing 4 games in his true freshman season in 2021. Following year, he played and started all 12 games, recording 755 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. He earned first-team freshman All-American honors from the Athletic, College Football News, and Football Writers Association of America. He led the nation's freshman in receptions and receptions per game with 5.4 and receiving yards, while ranking 2nd in receiving yards per game at 62.9 and tied for 2nd in touchdown receptions. That was all among freshmen there in that 2022 season. He did transfer to UCLA in 2023. During his time with the Bruins, he tallied 912 receiving yards, 58 receptions, and 6 touchdowns across 24 games. 6'3" wideout there made an immediate impact in his first season at UCLA. 597 receiving yards, 36 catches, 4 touchdowns. His impressive 16.58 yards per catch ranked 6th in the Pac-12 that year, showcasing his big play ability. However, Sturdivant's numbers did decline last season. He ranked 5th on the team in receiving yards, 3rd among wide receivers, with 315 yards and 2 touchdowns. His yards per catch average fell by 2.3 from 2023, leading to criticism of since, right there, UCLA, they fired their associate head coach and offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy. And part of that was because he couldn't figure out how to use J. Michael Sturdivant. People had seen the weapon that he was in previous seasons. Eric Bieniemy could not find a way to use Sturdivant's speed and size effectively as a deep threat. That is Sturdivant's game, being a deep threat. We heard Billy Napier here on Gators Breakdown back in early February when we were talking about J. Michael Sturdivant. I mean, it was apparent. It was obvious what they want to do with J. Michael Sturdivant. He is going to be a deep threat. He did manage 2 100-plus yard receiving games last season. Bruins didn't exactly have a ton of supporting talent around him either. Senior quarterback Ethan Garbers was kind of madly inconsistent. The rushing attack, largely atrocious there for the Bruins. And the rest of UCLA's receiving core, pretty pedestrian. Chip Kelly left, kind of leaving them, in flux. New staff there at UCLA could not figure out how to use J. Michael Sturdivant. One more time. 6'3", 205 pounds, nice blend of size and speed. The ideal frame for the X spot for the Gators to test down the field. Tested with a 4.38 40-yard dash at UCLA, and you're going to need a big physical cornerback to play with him. He's had flashes, late last season. Just want to see now the consistency. Maybe a change of scenery is needed to get back to that form. As you heard, Billy Napier say, it was, kind of Chimere Dike in a way. Had an outstanding year. Coaching change happens, and the new coaching staff doesn't know how to use a receiver. So maybe that change of scenery is all J. Michael Sturdivant needs. Hard to really know what to make of that situation this past season with the coaching change. So, have had productive season, stuck around for the coaching change. It didn't work out for the best in repeating success under the previous staff. So, rave reviews so far. Even more on J. Michael Sturdivant. He made Bruce Feldman's 2023 Freak List. At number 79, Bruce Feldman wrote, the 6'3", 206-pound sophomore is the most gifted wideout the Bruins have had in the Chip Kelly era. Sturdivant has topped out at 23.2 miles per hour, also bench pressed close to 300 pounds, and squatted almost 400 pounds this offseason. So, I remember on Twitter when J. Michael Sturdivant was coming to Florida, and there were some Twitter accounts, of course, that come up when you start talking about a player, and the algorithm works right there, and started seeing some previous NFL draft talk for J. Michael Sturdivant. So I went to the NFL Draft Buzz, the website right there. And they note that J. Michael Sturdivant's strengths are a long strider who eats up cushion quickly, allowing him to threaten defenses vertically and create space underneath. Displays good body control and adjustment skills when tracking deep balls, maximizing his catch radius. Effective at using his frame to box out defenders on contested catches, particularly in the red zone. Shows promise as a route runner with smooth breaks and the ability to find soft spots against zone coverage. Versatile enough to line up both outside and in the slot, giving offensive coordinators flexibility in formations. Demonstrates willingness as a blocker in the run game, using his size to engage smaller defensive backs. Special teams experience adds value. Scouting report for weaknesses. Needs to improve consistency in his hands, as concentration drops have been an issue throughout his college career. Can struggle to create separation against physical press coverage, relying too heavily on his size advantage. Route tree is still developing, with room for improvement in creating crisp breaks and selling fakes. Despite his straight line speed, lacks elite short area quickness to consistently win in small spaces. After the catch ability is limited, often going down on first contact rather than creating additional yardage. Summary of the scouting report for Sturdivant goes as this. Sturdivant projects as a developmental X receiver with the potential to contribute early as a deep threat and red zone target. His combination of size and speed will intrigue NFL teams looking for a player who can stretch the field vertically and create mismatches. While he may not be an immediate wide receiver one, Sturdivant has the tools to develop into a valuable piece of an NFL passing attack. Scheme fit will be crucial for Sturdivant's success at the next level. He would thrive in an offense that emphasizes play, action passes, and deep shots. Allowing him to use his long speed to get behind defenses. A team with a strong arm quarterback and an established short to intermediate threat could maximize Sturdivant's big play ability, where he continues to refine the nuances of his game. Sturdivant's track background adds another layer of intrigue to his NFL potential. His impressive performances in the 100 meters at 10.39 seconds, 200 meters at 21.23 seconds, and long jump, 22.10 and a quarter, at the Texas 6A state meet demonstrate his elite athleticism. His track pedigree suggests untapped potential in his ability to accelerate, maintain top speed, and make explosive plays in the open field. NFL teams will likely view his track achievements as evidence of his raw athletic ability and an indicator of his capacity to develop into a more dynamic receiver with proper coaching. Sounds tailor-made for the Billy Napier offense. About the play action deep shots, being hit down the field, having an intermediate partner to go with him, kind of like Trey Wilson, there. I mean, they were describing an NFL offense that he would fit into, but it describes to a T Billy Napier's offense. So you can see why he was targeted, why he is thought to be a good fit for this Florida Gator offense in 2025. I mean, he was getting some NFL draft love heading into the 2024 season. But, of course, we just chronicled not a great 2024 season. So now it'll be up to Florida to tap back into that potential. And Florida's got a track record of doing so, right? And we've seen it the last 2 years. Potential that would need to match what Florida has done in the past with this transfer of wide receivers. I mean, Florida has absolutely crushed it in their receiver transfers under Napier so far. In the track record, brought in Ricky Pearsall from Arizona State in 2022. Then last year added Elijah Badger, Chimere Dike. And they weren't just good pickups, guys. I mean, they were home runs for the wide receiver position. I don't know where this wide receiver position would have been. I remember a year ago. And saying Florida needed to hit the transfer portal, and then they had already gotten Chimere Dike. Remember, Elijah Badger didn't go through spring and kept telling people I think Florida needed to. And I know behind the scenes Florida wanted to go hit the transfer portal for another receiver, but I kept being told, nah, we're fine. Florida would not have been fine last year if they didn't go get Chimere Dike and Elijah Badger. Marcus Burke never broke through. Aiden Mizell, injuries play a part. He still hasn't really broken through yet. He's certainly one of my candidates to break through this year. He needs to be. Trey Wilson goes down. I mean, if Florida didn't have DK and Badger, it would have been awful. It would have been pretty bad last year. But here's for those transfers, here's the really impressive part. Those guys just didn't maintain their level of play. They took it to a whole new level in Gainesville. Pearsall started strong, 33 catches, 661 yards, 5 touchdowns in his first year, and then boom, 65 catches. 33 his first year at Florida, 65 his second year, 965 yards. Should have been a 1,000-yard receiver if Graham Mertz doesn't go down. That performance, well, it got him drafted in the first round by the 49ers. After he got back on the field, of course, after him getting shot tragedy, he gets back on the field and was playing really well for the 49ers. Pretty good development by the Gators there. Now, Badger story, also, of course, remember, coming from Arizona State. He was putting up solid numbers there, don't get me wrong. 70 catches one year for 866 yards, 65 for 713 yards the next year. But he was putting up stats for a reason that we knew we wanted him. He was putting up stats that, yeah, we need that at Florida. Then he gets to Florida, and Florida unleashes him as a deep threat. And man, did he deliver. 39 catches for 186 yards. So he didn't have nowhere as many catches, but had about the same amount of yards. So, I mean, 20.7 yards per catch for Elijah Badger. That was one of the best in the country. That's game-changing plays there. 30 less catches about. Only 60 yards shy of matching his career high in yards for a season. So Elijah Badger developed into not so much of a catch-and-run guy, and that was something I liked about him at Arizona State. Something I wish Florida would have done a little bit more. We didn't see enough of that. But we did see him become that big play threat down the field. So he developed a different part of his game here at Florida. And then, of course, Chimere Dike, a guy who crushed it with Graham Mertz at Wisconsin one season, 47 catches, 689 yards. Then his numbers drop after Mertz leaves, comes to Florida, and then what happens? The staff sees, hey, it's a 4.34 speed. We just saw it at the NFL Combine with Chimere Dike. Well, Florida knew what to do with him. 42 catches, 783 yards, 18.6 yards per catch. He was way up there as well. He rejuvenated his career by coming to Gainesville. So J. Michael Sturdivant, he's got to be next. The Badger DK, they just didn't improve their game. They raised their NFL draft stock. Ricky Pearsall raised his NFL draft stock by coming to Florida. That's what great coaching and great development looks like. So now the next step, and we'll get into it with this wide receiver group, it's time for Florida to have their recruited wide receivers do that, along with J. Michael Sturdivant being another transfer wide receiver who just did those same things, or who needs to do those same things. So hopefully Sturdivant continues to trend here. Early returns are really good for what he's been able to show so far in spring football, especially down the field. And he's getting those results without DJ Lagway throwing him the ball so far. So hopefully a good sign of things to come. Good talk on offense right there. Receiver group. A lot to like there. A lot to like. Let's go to some comments. Willie Peterson, you want to check out the last episode, my man. I did talk a lot about the defensive line there. As far as the portal, I think they'll go through spring practice, of course, and I think see who's available. We know they want another defensive lineman. They were targeting many in the transfer portal before. I don't think it's a necessity, especially if Jamari Lyons stays healthy and is the player we think he can be. But he's still coming off that injury. But I think if you can go and get – Florida won't reach there. I think they'll get somebody who would starter potential. I think it'll be about who's in the portal before we can fully say Florida's going to bring somebody in at that position. But last episode, man, went really, really heavy into defensive line. Oh, all right. Gator Truth. Gator through and through, my bad. Gator through and through, 88. DJ Lagway is going to have a field day with J. Michael Sturdivant. Okay. And Peter says, J. Michael Sturdivant season. I have a feeling he's just going to fit right in. He's just going to be like those transfers I just talked about, and he's going to up his draft stock. He's going to be a guy Florida counts on. All right, some other comments here because it kind of leads to the next segment. One more right here, though. Harrison Sanchez. Go Gators. Harrison, thanks for hopping in. But Tyler asked, how have Hayward and Stubbs looked so far? We'll get into a little bit of that right here. Perfect, Tyler. Perfect segue. Let's hear from Billy Napier and Jordan Castell.
Well, it's one of the areas that shows up. You know, you're out there. There's definitely, I looked up out there today, I think with the second group on defense, and every player was a true freshman, you know. So I do think that we've got quite a few players that are modified or not able to participate, you know, in particular in the secondary. I mean, you imagine getting Gates, Denson, Thornton, Dede back, you know, those are all essentially starters to some degree, not to mention a few others in the front seven, right? So I do think that presents a challenge, you know, not only for those individual players, but the secondary as a whole, you know, because the combinations of players out there, sure, Jordan's out there, Devin's out there, but then you look up and there's Josiah and Greg Smith, and they have minimal experience, right? So secondary is much like the offensive line. You know, it's continuity is critical. I think working with other players is critical. So I think we're going through some of those growing pains. But I do think in general, when we're doing it right, it's fun to watch, and those rookie players are getting valuable reps for sure.
I just say it's opportunity. You know, for myself, you know, when I was my freshman year, I had to step up and play. So I really just try to be that leader and, you know, mentor. Just, you know, it's your chance to play because say that they come back and they're not fully healthy. You know, you playing this year, so you got to step up.
What do you like about Drake Stubbs?
Man, full of energy. Full of energy. The man drink a Twitch like an energy drink like every day. Like, the man's different, though. I've never seen nobody like him.
What's his readiness as a freshman type of ways do you think he can contribute?
I like Drake a lot, though, because, like, he's always positive, and he's just a kid that loves football. Somebody who asks me a lot of questions and, you know, really just wants to get better.
What about Lagonza Hayward?
I ain't gonna lie, right now, Lagonza is, like, he's been opening a lot of eyes from the coaches. Like, the way he plays, like, he has so much love for the game. Just making plays on the ball, finishing, running to the ball, trying to strip the ball, but that's just a guy that, you know, who loves football.
What's it been like not having Bryce next to you? And
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie, like, Bryce, that's my boy. You know, we got a good relationship off the field, but, like, that's somebody, like, I ain't gonna lie, we need Bryce. Like, so we just want him to come back fully healthy, and he's gonna have a big year.
Who's been stepping up with him out?
Right now, we've been having Greg Smith in behind him, and Greg, he didn't get, like, too much play time last year, but he's a guy who's still learning, getting better.
You've been hearing a lot about Cormani playing. What have you seen from
Yeah.
him?
Cormani gained like 20 pounds. Like he looked totally different. So, like, he always been a guy who likes to compete. So, like, that's something I can't take away from him. But just like how much, like, you know, more serious he taking things now. Like, he's showing up early to meetings now, like getting film. You know, he's just a guy who loves ball as well.
So there you go, Tyler. You asked, and there you go. You heard Jordan Castell talking about those two freshmen that you asked about with Lagonza Hayward and Hilton Drake Stubbs. And certainly those guys getting plenty of reps. And we chronicled that all winter long, all coming into spring football practice, that was going to be the case. We went through multiple times here on the podcast about Sharif Denson going to be limited. And, of course, Aaron Gates being out for the injury that he suffered versus Ole Miss. Dede Johnson nursing injury. Devin Moore is actually healthy, so he can go through there. But just so many injuries back there. Bryce Thornton, of course, being out as well. That these guys were going to have their chances. Guys were going to have their snaps. And, look, it might be a blessing in disguise. I mean, I'd like to have those guys out there at the same time, but this is spring. You know, but Billy Napier says continuity is critical. And you'd like to have that continuity right now, but so many players either limited or out. The group's going through some growing pains, as Billy Napier said. But, hey, that's what spring is for. You know, this isn't fall. We saw all the shuffling last year during the season, during the fall, during games. And Florida found a way to up their level of play. And certainly, I think it started up front, but you didn't have those back-breaking plays in the secondary either. So you know, as we can hear from Napier, he likes what we're seeing, you know, from Stubbs, Hayward, you know, Hanks. You know, he's mentioning, look, I'm looking out there on the field right now, and all I see is freshmen. You know, so Stubbs and Hayward and Hanks. Jaden Woods up there up front. And I got a nice article on gatorsbreakdown.com right now of Jaden Woods, who, you know, Billy Napier also said he's got that DNA as a freshman to play early. And really high praise for Jaden Woods. And you know, that started before spring practice as well, going through all the workouts and winter workouts. Jaden Woods probably a true freshman to really look out for. But hey, look, all those guys out there on the practice field together in parts of practice, they're going to be growing pains for sure. You know, no matter how highly rated you are, these are your first snaps as a college football player. There's going to be growing pains. And I like the way Billy Napier put it too, of course, you know, kind of liking it to the offensive line where communication is so key. And we know, you know, how much of a problem it was early in Billy Napier's tenure at the safety spot and going back to the previous staff of safeties just not communicating. And we hope to see an improvement there. We certainly hope to see an improvement there. But Lagonza Hayward, I've heard some really good things about it. You know, Jordan Castell pointing it out is kind of reaffirming things that I've heard behind the scenes of Lagonza Hayward really being a guy who kind of coming along pretty fast along the defensive backfield as a freshman. So certainly, and I want to follow up more on that. Is it, you know, more him in the nickel spot, trying to make up for Denson and Gates not being out there, more one of the strong, you know, safety spots there as well. Maybe a combo, maybe moving him around, you know, certainly, but kind of just reaffirming that Lagonza Hayward coming along pretty nicely there as a true freshman. So I think those guys are going to contribute. And we saw Jordan Castell, you know, we'll hear from him in just a second. But him, just a couple of seasons ago, Florida's on the road at Utah, first game of the season, and Jordan Castell is right there, starting game one as a true freshman. So, you know, Florida, if Thornton comes back healthy enough, Castell's there, you're starting to. So Florida doesn't have to force in a Lagonza Hayward, Hilton Drake Stubbs, you know, Hank's there at corner as well on the back end. But I certainly think those guys, with their recruiting pedigrees, the type of players they are, can find their way onto the field pretty early. Probably not in starting roles because Florida's got a luxury right now, some experience. But I think play a lot. You know, Florida's proven, hey, look, we'll play you. If you're a freshman and you go out there and prove it, we'll play you. We will play you. And I think safety's going to be a spot for that. But, hey, let's hear more. Before we close down on this episode of Gators Breakdown, let's hear more from Jordan Castell on his offseason and even more on this defense.
Off season, just, you know, getting stronger, faster, and really just working on my off man. But as a team wise, you know, it's my third year now. You know, I'm unk now. You know, I'm getting old. So you know, just trying to be a leader. You know, I look at the DB room as my room. I'm the vet. You know, have a lot of experience, a lot of snaps under my belt, but just really trying to be a leader and lead by example.
But the November, how encouraged were you by the way the defense kind of turned it around post-Texas?
It was big, a lot. Everybody started playing way better ball, from the D-line to the linebackers to the safeties. And I feel like that first bye week that we got, like, the main thing was just competition. Like, that was the whole thing that we was worried about, just compete. And that's how we flipped everything around.
Thoughts on Vinnie Sunseri so far, a week into camp, and what have you learned from him?
Coach Vinnie's, I sit down with him, like, after practice, like, after meetings and stuff like that, and I have just learned so much, ball, just talking to him. You know, he came from different places, but, you know, somebody who actually, like, plays safety as well, so, you know, he has that experience as well, so it's a lot of help.
Did he tell you about his pick six on Johnny Football?
He talks about it a little bit. Nah, yeah, I got to watch it. He always talk about it, so it feel like I watched it already.
There we go. Have a little bit of fun there with Jordan Castell. Rob S., I'm going to your comment. I hope Castell figures it out. He regressed from the first half of his freshman year. Might have been a coaching issue. Well, you heard him get referenced right there about Vinnie Sunseri coming in as his coach now and a position coach, coaching the safeties. And hey, look, you kind of hit it right there. Might have been a coaching issue. Yeah, I don't know for sure or not, but it certainly could have been. Or at least bringing a coach in that can coach that position, has played that position, can share much more than Will Harris. I thought did a great job with the cornerbacks last year, but maybe safety play took a dip. Well, maybe now you got a dedicated safety coach in Sunseri. Now of course a dedicated coach at cornerbacks as well. So with Darren Wilson, so certainly your secondary. While you're shuffling coaching again, at least you have some dedicated, Wilson with kind of a pedigree there at Florida before, and then goes to Arkansas, and now comes back to Florida, and now Sunseri being able to play that position there at Alabama at a high level, go to Washington, and now coach there for last year. We're now bringing his experience to Florida as well, so certainly could be a reason why we see an elevated play at corner and safety, but specifically at safety, as you said, because you're right. I mean, Castell did take a dip. He didn't have, I guess you would call it a sophomore slump. He did have a sophomore slump. He wasn't able to build on that freshman season. As I mentioned a couple seasons ago, Florida's going to Utah, road game, first game of the year, and Jordan Castell is a true freshman, kind of surprising everybody at that moment that, he was starting. We didn't really hear a whole lot through spring, didn't really throw a whole lot through fall camp that Jordan Castell would be that type of player. And he played well as a freshman. And they were moving him around. He played closer to the line of scrimmage. He played there on the back end as well. But kind of the bugaboo about this defense dating back to the start of last year and that freshman year for Jordan Castell was, giving up a lot of big plays. And we certainly saw it in that game against Utah as well, their first big play of the game there for Utah. And, that was just kind of the MO for Florida defense under Austin Armstrong and starting off last year as well. So certainly got better in that regard. Jordan Castell did get better as the season went on last year too. Certainly you have to ask yourselves, what contributed to it more? I think the safeties did play better, for sure. I think they were very, very much helped by a lot of great play up front from Tyreek Sapp and Caleb Banks and Cam Jackson and those guys at edge that transferred away as well. So, but you're looking for another step. You're looking for a bounce back for Jordan Castell to be a more consistent player, to live up to what we thought we might get in his second full season last year. And now Vinnie Sunseri comes in, coaching those guys up, and should be, if everything goes right, a difference maker with somebody with that experience playing that position, being able to share his experiences there along with Jordan Castell. So, Greg Davis playing right there beside him. With Bryce Thornton being injured. I know somebody, a player that a lot of people were kind of wanting to see more of last year. Greg Smith, Josiah Davis and Greg Smith. Got the names mixed up there. But Greg Smith, I know, was a player that in limited time last year, made a lot of people excited. So Florida certainly gives Florida another, I think, option on the back end to go along with those freshmen that we already talked about. So if you're looking for a player gaining a little bit of experience last year, and then tying that up to being even more so this year, where you don't have to throw a freshman in. Now, I'll go back to the statement I just like to make. If you see freshmen playing in this regard, and in the situation Florida finds themselves in, I think they probably went and proved it. Because Florida, they're not forced to play freshmen right now because they're in dire need of it. These guys would have to go out there and earn snaps over a Jordan Castell, earn snaps over a Bryce Thornton. So that goes for the second-year players, too, who are looking for more playing time at corner, at safety. Now, a lot of those guys are getting reps all throughout spring practice right now. So that's going to benefit them as Gates and Denson and Dede are nursing injuries. You hope it helps Florida in the long run, that those guys that you are expecting to be starters come back and play at the level that we expect them to play. But if they need a breather, or if they get injured again, or if those other guys just come out and say, hey, they're too good to keep off the field, let's just split some time. This spring's going to go a long way in that, and these guys are getting a ton of reps. CB, that's a hard one to answer, man. Do you think Castell will be more willing tackler this year? I hope so. We'll have to see it. I'm not in the mentals of him, of course. Certainly, hopefully something they're working on this year. We know it was a big emphasis in spring last year. Will Harris comes in, gets with those DBs, and we saw it up close and personal. Hopefully still an emphasis, of course. And it was a defense that did play a lot more physical. Talked about, Jordan Castell talked about it. It was asked about it. Hey, what changed? After that Texas game last year, and Castell goes back, well, let's go back to that first bye week. Just a level of competition. And look, they did play better. Still, you were still looking for the wins, even though they were playing much better. And then the wins finally came. But competition was the main. You heard Pup Howard say it here on Gators Breakdown when I asked him strictly about that. Jordan Castell says it too. They just ramped up competition. And I guess that would be the only bad thing with not the only bad thing, but that would be a negative angle to a lot of these guys missing spring camp. Is the competition angle of it. Now, you want them to nurse their injuries, and this is the time to do so. When fall camp rolls around, you hope you just pick up that level of competition that we were seeing after that first bye week last year. But you are missing a sense of it this year because of those injuries. But I do think at the same time, getting these young guys the reps is important at the same time. All right, Matt, I will hit your comment, and then we'll call it an episode here at Gators Breakdown. Later this week, Will Miles will join me. We'll get back together for the first time since spring practice has started, and we'll just go through spring storylines. You've heard from me the last week and a half about spring practice. We'll just kind of rehash, but with Will Miles, you get Will Miles' angle of it. So we'll hop here on Gators Breakdown, and we will discuss spring practice storylines coming up. But last one here, Matt Larson says, who are your starting three at wide receiver? Think I put this out there before, but I will go Trey Wilson, J Michael Sturdivant, and I'm going to go Aiden Mizell. I think that's the most combo most people have out there. Could be one of those freshmen. You see a VB3, Dallas Wilson. Billy Napier talked about it a little bit in the same press conference. Khalil Jackson will come back. That won't make a lot of people excited, but he's going to be in the mix. But certainly, I think the most likely combo will be Sturdivant, Wilson, Mizell. But Mizell, it's time. Like I said, I'll leave it at that. We'll talk wide receiver more. We'll hear from Billy Gonzalez at some point this spring, so we'll go deeper than besides Tre Wilson and J Michael Sturdivant. But Aiden Mizell, it is time. It is time. It's time to, if he's earned it, get the ball in his hands. But, he's got to do his job too. And it is time for him to do his job. It is time for him to be on the field and be a consistent threat at wide receiver. We've seen flashes. We saw plenty of flashes last year. The could be, should be touchdown versus Mississippi State that somehow the refs wanted to call that one back. The big touchdown versus Georgia. It's DJ Lagway's first big explosion type play where he hops off of his feet and throws it down the field, albeit against Stanford, but you saw the potential of a Lagway and Mizell combo. We saw the flashes last year. It is time. It is time. All right, everybody. Hey, I think it went pretty smooth for the first live stream with the new system here. So, boom. I like it. It's a little more work on the front end, but hopefully when I get used to it, you'll get a bigger, better Gators breakdown. But so far, so good. Hopefully you couldn't even really tell the difference. But good stuff. Everybody, thanks for the comments. Thanks for hopping in on this episode of Gators Breakdown. I am your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thank you for joining me on this episode of Gators Breakdown.